Pavel Durov, the founder of Telegram, a quasi-private but really free speech platform, was arrested in France last week. Is this the beginning of the end for free speech? Let's dive into it. So the French authorities picked up Pavel in France on 12 charges. Now, first of all, anytime you see someone get picked up on 12 charges, especially 12 charges that are so vast in range, chances are it's like a shotgun approach. It's like they don't actually have anything on this guy, but they don't like him, and they want to make sure that they can get something on him. So we've got the Tribunal Judiciaire de Paris. Basically, here's a list of charges. Mastering an online platform to enable illegal transactions. Like, oh man, this is crazy. Refusal to communicate. Now this, I think, is the craziest one. We'll talk about that in a second. Possessing pornographic images of minors, disturbing, offering, or making available pornographic images of minors in an organized group. Guys, these are serious allegations that obviously we've got an archaic law dictating what the future of technology looks like. Acquiring, transporting, or possessing narcotic substances, offering, selling, or making available without legitimate reason. Equipment, tools, programs, or data designed for and adapted to get access and to damage the operation of automated data. Organized fraud. Like, there's just so much stuff here. Obviously, you guys can read the rest of it. What I want to identify here, someone who organized the people to write the code is now being made responsible for what their users did on the platform. Ultimately, a free speech platform. This is a very similar vibe to Ross Ulbricht, the creator of the Silk Road. They argued that he created an environment that made it easy for people to do illegal things. How far do we take this? How come we're not locking up the inventor of the internet where all of this stuff is happening? There's a big problem when we have people getting in trouble for their inventions and not how they use their inventions, but how other people use their inventions. Something tells me he's not Jeffrey Epstein. Something tells me he's not the guy who's actually distributing this stuff. Something tells me it's just what they want to charge him with because they don't like him.
He did a long interview with Tucker Carlson in America, and so has come out more in public, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He was quite vocal when he was still in Russia. You mentioned that in 2014 he fell out with the authorities. According to him, the Kremlin tried to basically take control of the company. They tried to force VK, which is the company that he created, Russia's version of Facebook, to hand over personal data from of pro-Ukrainian protesters, anti-Kremlin protesters. According to Durov, the company refused to do that, and he was basically forced to sell it to a company that had close links to the Kremlin. VK is now almost totally under the control of the Russian security services.
That is absolutely wild. So Durov, this is 10 years ago. He's talking about Russian authorities here. Durov doesn't want to give up his customer data to the authorities, so he's forced to sell it to a company that will. Do you guys see how honeypots work? Are you watching how centralization, when there is a throat to choke, throats will be choked? So look at that. 10 years ago, he's standing up for freedom. He's standing up for the rights of his users. He falls out of touch, falls out of the favor of the authorities. And look at where we are today. He creates a new app. He creates Telegram. He protects users' privacy. And once again, is falling out of touch with the authorities. Privacy is a biggest joke of this century. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling the same way. We think all of our data is private. We think our messages are end-to-end encrypted, and we think that things are moving through channels that we control. But at the end of the day, we don't. At the end of the day, there is thousands and thousands and thousands of terabytes of data on you. You're kind of in a lose-lose scenario here. Cool. Now arrest anyone who works at a phone company and every single person involved in mail delivery. This is kind of my point here. Do we get mad at the post service because they delivered the narcotics that were sold on the Silk Road? How do we pick and choose? Why is it possible for the authorities to pick and choose? This is what happens when you have a set of rulers without clear, concise rules. They pick and choose which rules to follow, and more importantly, who does or doesn't have to follow them. This is the problem.
For me, it was never about money, right? So I have a few $100 million in my bank account or in Bitcoin since 10 years ago, and I don't do anything with it. I don't own any real estate, jets, yachts. I don't think this lifestyle is for me. I like to focus on what we are doing with Telegram.
You don't own anything? Like big assets? You don't own
no big assets. Exactly.
An island in Hawaii or...
No land, no real estate, nothing.
Why?
Well, because for me, my number one priority in life is my freedom.
Oh, that's good. Guys, this is a bit of a different rabbit trail that we can run down. We can absolutely sprint down it for hours. We're not going to do it today, but this is a good time to tell you to subscribe if you want to hear something like that. I'm sure in the future we'll talk about why big assets weigh you down and why they don't actually protect your freedom. TLDR here, when you own something, you own, let's say, a house, you own the asset on top of rented land. You do not control that land. You are exposed to the decisions of that government. You are exposed to 3 different levels of bureaucrats making good decisions that protect the land that, by the way, you don't actually own. You are ultimately weighed down in that jurisdiction. There's a massive opportunity cost to owning that land, to owning that big asset, especially against Bitcoin.
And once you start buying things, first it will tie you down to a physical location. In my view, it's my personal view. I don't have nothing against people who are buying real estate, but in my personal view, it would be like this for me. And the second reason is I like to stay focused on what we do at Telegram. So I know that if I buy a house, I buy a jet, something like that, I would be spending time on trying to make it nice. And this will require a lot of time and effort.
Would you go with leather seats or velvet seats?
Exactly. For me, I would rather make decisions that would influence how a billion people communicate rather than choosing the color of seats in the house that only I and my relatives or probably a bunch of my friends will see.
That's cool. That's pretty based. I think that's pretty solid. He is based for real, for real. Yeah, that is a pretty base statement. Having that linear focus to making your life a series of decisions that actually impact the most amount of people. That is some low time preference action. Here we are setting the stage for who is Pavel Durov, because I think that he wasn't someone that's been publicly in the light for too long. He comes out on Tucker Carlson, kind of shows this based opinion, then refuses some kind of top-down tyranny, and now he's in jail.
We got too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the US. So to give you an example, last time I was in the US, I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, whatever they are called.
The US government tried to hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
This is some Edward Snowden level investigation. That is so crazy that the government is trying to not only go after the leader, but now going after the individual, the person who is not in charge, but who's doing the work. Do we see how centralization creates more and more and more throats to choke?
Would allow the US government to spy on people who use Telegram?
The US government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
You're confident that happened?
Yes. There is no reason for my engineer to make up the stories. Also because I personally experienced similar pressure in the US. Whenever I would go to the US, I would have 2 FBI agents greeting me at the airport, asking questions. One time I was having my breakfast. The FBI showed up at my house that I was renting.
Why would had you committed a crime?
No. They were interested to learn more about Telegram. They knew I, left Russia. They knew what we were doing, but they wanted details. And my understanding is that they wanted to establish a relationship to, in a way, control Telegram better. I understand they were doing their job. It's just that for us running a privacy-focused social media platform, that probably wasn't the best environment to be in. We want to be focused on what we do.
This is such an interesting insight into how this these big tech, these big communication platforms function, they wanted to establish a relationship. That relationship goes deeper and deeper and deeper. It starts with, hey, let's get a relationship, make sure you stay above board, we're here to help you. And that eventually gets to, hey man, you can't do that, you need to give us this. They are designed, these teams are designed, it seems like, to manipulate these founders, manipulate these CEOs, and get them to share data that they otherwise probably wouldn't share if that relationship wasn't established. They otherwise wouldn't necessarily be inclined or compelled to share, but they want to create these quasi-formal, but also very seemingly harmless relationships. Good for Pavel for understanding that this is not harmless. I think that his experience in communist Russia, by the way, like his experience there, brings that experience over to the US, whatever this was, 6-7 years later, and understands very, very clearly that these are not his friends, that he will ultimately be choked out of his business or have to compromise his moral code to his users. They want to control everything, even trying to sneak in back doors through Telegram. This is why they always target those who won't bow down. Pavel Durov stood his ground and faced their pressure. Props to him for resisting the control. Yeah, well said. I mean, like... I have to assume more of the activity they're accusing Telegram of is happening on WhatsApp, is happening on Facebook Messenger, is happening on Facebook and Facebook groups. Another comment from this Pavel Durov, straight up communism. Yeah, guys, literally the same pressures he faced in Russia, he faced in the USA. Put that through your brain. He faced pressure in Russia and then faced the same pressure in America. They are the same. These governments, these tyranny are coming through. They want to control their population. And I cannot stress enough how important it is to be sovereign and to take custody of your information and, of course, of your Bitcoin. So we spoke about Mark Zuckerberg, and I just want to highlight, look at the timing here, August 26th. Pavel was arrested on August 24th. And he says, so there's a lot of talk right now around how the US government interacts with companies like Meta, and I want to be clear about our position. Our platforms are for everyone. We're about promoting speech and helping people connect in a safe and secure way. As part of this, we regularly hear from governments around the world and other various concerns around public discourse and public safety. And then he goes on to basically admit that he gave up info and complied with these authorities. In 2021, senior officials, including from the White House, repeatedly pressure our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 informations. He says, we've changed our policies and processes to make sure this doesn't happen again. For instance, we no longer temporarily demote things in the US while waiting for fact checkers. We live in a world where they force the distribution people, they force the distribution platforms to demote things while they wait, or at least that was the old position. And now we're seeing these platforms wake up. We're seeing society as a whole talk back. Edward Snowden, the arrest of Durov is an assault on the basic rights, human rights of speech and association. I am surprised and deeply saddened that Macron has descended to the level of taking hostages as a means for gaining access to private communications. It lowers not only France, but the world. Yeah, people in the EU should be petrified. People in broader Europe, specifically in France, but we're seeing the same kind of garbage happen in the UK. We're seeing the EU melt down. We are seeing this wokeism, socialism, communism, suppression of free speech happen all over the EU, and the EU will fail because of it. It is up to the judiciary in full independence to enforce the law. The arrest of the president of Telegram on French soil took place as part of an ongoing judicial investigation. It is in no way a political decision. It is up to the judges to rule on the matter. Who appoints the judges? Who do we think are we giving the right to? Who are we giving the ability to decide what is against or for the law? I don't know how any leader of any free country can sit there and say that anything is not political anymore when politics are so intertwined with the entirety of all of these governed bureaucratic systems. Everything feels like a political, especially when it seems like it's one side of the aisle that's taking the hit. When we see one side, when we see specific industries, freedom of speech industries, Bitcoin communication, Bitcoin education industries getting banned, getting censored, their founders being arrested, when we see this happening, we have to wonder, Where has freedom gone? Where is freedom going to go? What does freedom look like in 5, 10, 15 years? Which is why I'm bullish on platforms and protocols like Nostr, why I'm bullish on the Bitcoin protocol as a whole. We as a society, you and me who understand what's going on, we have to put the work in today to understand how these protocols work so that our kids and our grandkids will have the benefit of usable protocols. We'll have the benefit of these technologies being free and open for everyone to take part in. It will take more pain in order for more people to wake up to the fact that we need decentralized communication protocols, that we need to decentralize, that in order to capture free speech back, in order to regain our freedom of speech, we need to put the work in to have programs that run on top of these protocols. So with all that to say, I want to know from you, how should we respond to this level of censorship? Is this censorship, is any part of this censorship warranted? Is any part, there is a lot of heinous stuff that happens on Telegram. Telegram is a cesspool of scams and fraud, and probably lots of the allegations that are against Pavel do happen on Telegram. Is that a reason to violate the freedoms of every Telegram user? Are we going to let a small select few scam artists on Telegram ruin a private messaging right for millions, hundreds of millions, I think he said billions of people? Is that justified or not? Let me know in the comments down below. As always, if you like this video, please subscribe, and I'll chat to you next week. Stay sovereign.